Hello and welcome. Today I'm here with Kate Skilbeck, who's the author of Navigating Depression. My name is Marcus Duff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, so my name's Kate Skilbeck, and I've been working as a psychologist for nearly 30 years now, working in community mental health. So working one-on-one with individuals and working with their families. I also do a lot of work with schools and other sort of non-government and government organisations. So I've worked across a lot of different sectors. Over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, I've also been offering a lot of supervision to people working in the field, both in schools and allied health, community mental health. So it's an area I'm really passionate about, really contributing and hoping to make a difference to improving people's lives, really. Yeah.
Wow, so 30 years experience. Fair to say you've been in the sector for some time.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to create these cards?
So over the years, I guess I've come up close and personal, with people who have suffered from, chronic states of distress, people who have, had diagnoses of depression and other mental illnesses. And so it's just this real understanding of the ubiquitous nature of suffering, that we all suffer, that it's a common human experience, really. But when people are diagnosed with depression, it's another level, of managing challenging thoughts and feelings, emotions, and just living life can just be super tough. And so I know that, the stats really bear this out. We look at the stats here in Australia, 1 in every 5 adults, 16 to 85, will suffer from a mental illness in their lifetime, and depression, anxiety, and substance misuse disorder are key diagnoses. I think about 1 in 4 adolescents will experience depression in their lifetime. Almost half of Australian adults will experience mental illness in their lifetime. So it's a big problem to solve. And we know a lot. We know a lot about how we can work more skillfully with these challenging states. Both I'm drawing from in this resource ancient traditions of practice and wisdom traditions, as well as, modern and contemporary psychology, neuroscience. We know a lot we can offer just to help people navigate through these experiences, more skillfully. And I guess this tool is about opening up conversations, allowing, one-on-one group conversations about this experience, this lived experience of chronic sadness and depression. And we're really hoping that the bringing together all these modalities and what we do know makes a difference.
I think that we've all experienced suffering at one point in our life. Could you tell us a bit more about the metaphor of travel and how that helps explore conversations around this topic?
Yeah, so when we were thinking about developing the concept and sort of this particular resource, it really felt like the metaphor of a journey was incredible fertile ground, actually, to explore conversations of lived experience, of thoughts, feelings. We can use the metaphor in so many ways, like life is a journey, and that idea of being able to create a course, like chart a course, actually, to create agency and choice. And so the depictions on the cards, I think Sharon's done a beautiful job that, really show lots of metaphor. Really extends that description of mood too. Like we can look at sort of weather, as gloomy, as hot and scorching, as freezing. Also, it can be bright and sunny and really uplifting. So we can sort of draw upon that through these therapeutic explorations, really. And also through the interventions that we use. We've used the metaphor a lot around mood and travel and nature. Also the terrain, like we're really using this idea of entering the territory, mapping the terrain, and the terrain, the metaphor there too, that, we can be sort of sludging through mud and terrain where there might be quicksand or stuck in the thick, dense forest. As well, we can stand up on mountains, clear views, big skies. We can have signposts that kind of give us direction. So really rich metaphor that we can really explore people's lived experience.
And you mentioned the characters. Why did you want to include those characters?
The Navigating Depression cards, we really designed them to be inclusive, inclusive of all people. So they're actually targeting people sort of adolescents through to older adults. And we wanted to create a sense of inclusion and accessibility, that we can sort of see ourselves in some sense in the cards. or our auntie or our uncle or our grandmother or our cousin, so that because it is a shared experience. And so I wanted to represent diversity. So we have different age groups, different genders, different backgrounds. We want them to be accessible, really. And I guess the why a set of characters, I guess, life is not a solo journey. We wanted to have a sense that the cards can represent that sometimes, having a sort of a support crew, when we're traveling through, seeking help, asking for assistance, nurturing relationships. There's a lot in relationships. And so these cards, like sometimes the cards are just one person on the card, other times there'll be a group of people, which is representing the journey really. Sometimes we spend time alone, reflective, and at other times we draw in support and inspiration from those around us.
How is navigating depression different to other mental health resources?
The navigating depression cards, there's actually 40 cards, and they depict beautiful photographic images with vector images of the characters depicting this sort of journey. Each card has been really chosen to represent sort of a part of the journey. There's 4 suits, I'll speak about that later. But I guess how it might be different is that through these creative and evocative images, it really promotes this conversation. It's about enabling sort of a person-centered, unique conversation, allowing things to emerge. Like it really is about just facilitating the power of conversation, whether that be a one-on-one or in a group setting or a team. It's about exploration, really. And, depression's complex, biopsychosocial. It's complex. And so this is about really discovering and learning and reflecting what's going on in terms of your mental health well-being, physiologically, like how it's affecting you emotionally, the way that you're behaving and doing and living in the world. So it's actually about a deep dive into exploring what's going on for you.
How do you see the cards being used in different settings?
So the cards are really, as a therapeutic tool, they've been developed to be used by practitioners, really. And not just practitioners, like it could be psychologists, social workers, mental health practitioners, but they could also be teachers, they could be team leaders, they could be supervisors, they could be group facilitators, of any sort, really. So we want it to be accessible, but also even families, like sometimes having conversations about depression can be really tough. Like I know that many families are hesitant, they hold back, they're afraid of what to ask will make things worse. But these have been designed really so they can create safe conversations. So pretty much anyone can use them anywhere, in any context that's exploring mental health, and in particular, really people who are really suffering from chronic sadness and distress states such as depression. So the cards have been designed for young people all the way through until older adults. And so there's a broad range in ways in which we could use these. For example, one-on-one. As a psychologist, I've used many of Innovative Resources, their tools, therapeutic tools. And so in the counselling room, in the therapy room, social worker, mental health worker, psychologist, counsellor, using it one-on-one, they can prompt discussion. It's not just about taking information, but rather allowing things to emerge. You can get to know so much. They're simple but powerful questions. And with the metaphor of the journey, it just enables us to walk through them, people to be drawn to cards that speak to them. So one-on-one, beautiful way of opening up creative, explorative, curious conversation. Also, in groups. Like this could be a group that's targeted at a bunch of adolescents, who are suffering from low mood. It could be in a group setting that's therapeutic. It could be in teams, workplaces. In this field, as we know, like it's pretty tough sometimes, So looking at preventing burnout, exploring things around secondary trauma or vicarious trauma. It's actually really anyone can use these to look at how to stay well. We all go through challenging moods. We all go through stressful times. These tools really can enhance anyone's sort of toolkit, for well-being. So certainly for our own self-care, I reckon also the way we could use it is individually, just for a tool for journaling, to reflecting, our own self-care, our own map, and charting a course through challenging times. Yeah, so they're really flexible actually and adaptable. So I think a range of settings, really anywhere where you're talking about promoting mental health and building resilience for well-being.
So, Kate, you mentioned that there are 4 suits in the card set. Could you tell us a little bit about each suit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to design it so that each suit represented sort of a stage of the journey, just a way of kind of orienting the conversation. And the suits are actually distinguished by a different colour on the back. Um, in fact, you can use the suits, and I'll explain how we might use those suits or not, because the suits aren't indicated by the front image, the front of the cards. So, suit number one is about entering the territory. So, in suit number one, we're really asking essentially, how did I get here? Have I been here before? Can I change direction? If I keep moving in this direction, where am I going to go? Where am I headed? So lots of kind of discussion around kind of the causes and the conditions, the patterns, this familiar, is this a well-worn path? Now this is really important actually with depression, because often people can have more than one episode of depression in their lives, and often there will be sort of a pattern or a pathway into really low states, and we can learn about that. And so suit number one is very much about that. So really asking questions around, where am I headed? Can I change direction? Really important part of that, entering the territory and exploring that. Suit number two is about mapping the terrain. So in this, we actually have a series of symptoms really that name the experience, like feeling numb, feeling exhausted, feeling sad, angry, struggling, stuck. So these common experiences when we're really down. There's 2 sentence starters actually on this suit. So the first is actually exploring the experience. So, for example, numb. When I'm feeling flat, I no longer enjoy. So you get to begin to explore what's happening when you're feeling really stuck or numb. And the second sentence starter is actually looking at, well, how might I be able to relieve this, alleviate this, move out of this? So, for example, I start to feel more alive when. And so really inviting that sort of exploration of that set of symptoms, being able to name them really and get to know them. We're not sort of pathologizing, we're exploring really, which is really important. The suit number 3, this is my favourite to be honest, is actually about tools for the journey. So really looking at how we can come to know ourselves, come to know our states and our moods, and learn how to actually navigate skillfully and kindly. This is where really we've drawn from an enormous body of knowledge, across a range of disciplines. So for example, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioural therapy, narrative therapy, positive psychology, neuroscience, the whole field of post-traumatic growth. There's a whole range of interventions and sort of modalities that we're drawing upon here. And so each of the cards has a statement, so observing thoughts. This is an incredibly profound skill to learn when we're working with mood. Often we'll have, diagnosed depression has depressed mindset. I'm not worthy, I'm broken, no one cares, I'm all alone. These are really common thoughts that arise when we're feeling really low and we're depressed. If we can learn to observe these thoughts, we can really find a new way of kind of positioning and orienting, getting new perspectives. Like I come to see now, when I have certain kinds of thoughts, I'll say to myself, there's my mind saying that again. And instead of kind of being hijacked by that thought, and just because I have a thought believing it's true or real, sometimes it's really recognizing that's not helpful. And, maybe I can orient my way of feeling and experiencing that thought in a new way. So observing thoughts, really important. Cultivating calm, being present, seeking help, being brave, building hope. There's all these beautiful ways in which we can work mindfully and skillfully to kind of alleviate the pain that might come from that low state of depression. So that's suit number 3. And suit number 4 is about looking back and moving forward. In this suit, it's really about looking back at what have I learned along the way. through depression, not always is it just bleak. Like we often come through, having breakdowns to have breakthroughs. We can actually learn from our experience, what's worked, what's helpful. Also, it's a great time to explore, learning about our warning signs. Like if we can know what triggers us, if we can know how we begin to feel and think and behave. Like I know for me, I have a trajectory, a pattern. Like if I get really stressed, then I might start to overthink things. Then I might start to not sleep well. And then I start to have a lower mood. So I can know this pattern. If we know this pattern, we can be really wise, bringing in kind and helpful ways of kind of managing that. Each suit too has a different way of kind of orienting. So suit 1, questions of orientation. Suit 2 is about the sentence starters. Suit 3 is actually experiential exercises, using these tools in real time. So you're with the client, let's do it, let's give it a go. So if you're doing, so for example, cultivating calm, I would actually ask my client to do the invitation. You could read that with them in the room, standing up, imagine you are, and then getting them to have the experience. So that they're adding to their toolkit. Getting them between sessions if you do it that way. Practice this, see how you go. Take it with you, or take a few they might get an impulse that might be helpful, or that could be helpful. Take it with you, try it on, come back, reflect. How'd you go? What are you learning? So all about experiential learning. And finally, in suit 4, it's about reflection. And in a way, really, it's about being able to find a pathway, find a set of tools to help navigate this whole process of navigation, really, of charting the course and learning from and moving forward. So that's the suits.
So could you tell us a little bit on how to actually use these cards?
There are so many ways. And actually in the booklet, there's a lot of suggestions around how you can do that. So, for example, there's 40 cards, and you could actually go from card number 1 to card number 40. As we designed this, it could be that you literally put the cards out along a trail and walk along. So it'd be beginning with, where am I? And then there's questions on the back, like what am I experiencing inside of me? What am I experiencing outside of me? All the way through to the end, and that is like moving forward. So you could walk along those 40 cards. That would be potentially many sessions of therapy. So that's one way that you could do it. You could also do it where I would often, put the cards out on the ground and have my clients stand up in the room, and I might just ask questions like, which one gets your attention? What would you like more of? What would you like to learn more about? What have you already got as a skill or a strength or a capacity to work with whatever's going on for you? So it can be about really emergent and sort of spontaneous. People can just call upon what gets their attention. Like, for example, I love that you can hold the cards. Like often a kid or an adolescent that I work with will just sit back and kind of look at the image. We might not even go to what's on the back of the card. It just might be the image itself that speaks to them, of a memory or of something that's got their attention. And that's what's salient. That's what's important. What I love about these is that really they emerge. There's a conversation. It's not just about note taking and sort of taking information. You learn so much simply by bearing witness, listening deeply, and creating safety. So we can do it that way. Another way we can do it can be random selection. So just pick a card, any card, and it might be and something that is really quite remarkable about the spontaneity that comes out. It's like, this card, there's something about this card that actually speaks to me. And there's something kind of magic about that synchronicity sometimes, I find. You can also, sometimes I'll be thinking about a kid before they come, or an adult before they come to a session, and I'll go, oh no, I'm going to use that set of cards. I can use this card set. And I might just choose a few cards that I think might speak to them about what we're currently exploring. That can be a beautiful way of just following the curiosity and seeing what arises. There are so many different ways we can do this. Using the suits, you might just say, there are 4 suits. You could have, sort of roughly speaking, 4 sessions. Or if it's a group, that's how I'm really hoping to use these cards. Like, I haven't really used them properly yet, as we only literally got them off the press yesterday. So I can't wait to think about just one suit for a group. let's take suit number 1, week 1, suit number 2, week 2. And by the time we get to 4 sessions, 4 groups, we've got a whole lot of repertoire, a lot of coping strategies, a lot of insight and knowledge. There's almost endless ways. And in the booklet, there are a lot of different suggestions, questions you can ask, and different settings as well in which how you can use them. Whether that's settings, as I've been speaking, really one-on-one, or in groups. But also, like, I work a lot with secondary schools, supervising wellbeing teams, and one way where we're already thinking about using this is in like drama classes, art classes, PE classes, health classes. There's a whole lot of ways in which we could use these cards to elicit, knowledge and understanding about mental health and wellbeing. It seems to me, really, the sky's the limit, and it's really about your own creativity. And of course, on each of these cards, there's a example of how you might explore it. But you're the therapist, you're the practitioner. You've got your own knowledge and skills. So just know that you, together with your client, can create whatever sort of emerges from the cards and the words on the cards, the images on the cards. Yeah, many, many ways.
And has there been anybody who's inspired you throughout your career?
Most definitely. I think perpetually a student. And, really this card set, it stands on the shoulders, the content on the shoulders of many, many who have come before us. I really want to pay homage to them. And as I was researching, I guess, particularly when working with depression, there's a group of academics that were given a massive task really to look at. So it was from Oxford University, Cambridge University and Toronto University to look at how we prevent episodic depression. Like very often, some people might have one episode and recover, but for many, it's actually an episodic recurrent illness throughout a lifetime. And that's tough. And so there was a lot of emphasis put on how do we actually prevent relapse. So they developed what's called mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for depression. And in fact, they created a 4-week course that is offered to students. And I teach that course and I find it incredibly powerful, coming together, people understanding kind of the shared and common experiences of depression and building understanding and compassion, kindness. It can be so helpful, drawing out of isolation and aloneness into that sort of shared experience can be very powerful. And these academics really brought that together. One particular, Mark Williams, he has done some incredible work in this space. And we actually sent this resource to Mark recently, and he looked at the resource and he's really endorsed it. He's actually written the foreword for the booklet. I'm very happy that he's kind of given a nod. So Mark is actually the emerite professor of clinical psychology at Oxford University. And so to have his endorsement, he actually said he offers his blessings. He said, may they be for all who use them a place where new possibilities can be found.
So there's over 40 cards in the set. Are there any other resources that we can access?
Yeah, so for additional resources, a great feature is at the back of the booklet, there's a QR code. You can scan the QR code, which will take you to Innovative Resources, the platform, and then you'll find Navigating Depression, a toolkit. And we're going to continue to add resources as we go, just to deepen and further the conversation as you use these as a therapeutic tool in all the contexts that you might use them. Another great feature is that they're going to be offered as in a digital format. So you can take those cards digitally, you can write on them, share them. Again, another way of just interacting with them.
So thank you very much for having us today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I want to thank you from Innovative Resources for working with us, and we also look forward to working with you in the future.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Marcus. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for watching. That was an interview with author Kate Skilbeck on Navigating Depression. Thank you.